Imagine the world taking its first breath after 6 long years of war. It is 1945. The cannons have fallen silent, and a fragile peace settles over the ruins of empires. But this is not a simple return to the old order. From the ashes of the Second World War, a new global landscape is emerging, one defined not by many competing powers, but by 2 colossal giants, their ideologies fundamentally opposed. The atomic bomb, which brought a swift end to the conflict in the Pacific, also casts a long, terrifying shadow over the future. It is a symbol of unprecedented power, a power initially held by only one nation. And so 2 giants stare each other down across a fractured globe. The United States, champion of capitalism and liberal democracy, and the Soviet Union, the vanguard of a worldwide communist revolution. Allies yesterday, their marriage of convenience against a common foe now dissolved. They become rivals today. The fundamental question is no longer how to win the war, but who will shape the peace. In 1946, Winston Churchill, no longer Prime Minister but still a powerful voice, travels to Fulton, Missouri, and gives the new reality a name. He warns of an iron curtain descending across the continent, a stark division between a Soviet-dominated East and a free West. The phrase captures the world's imagination and defines the era. By 1947, this division solidifies into policy. I see the Truman Doctrine, a pledge that America would support free peoples resisting subjugation by armed minorities or outside pressures. It is a direct challenge to Soviet expansionism, effectively declaring that the United States will contain the spread of communism. This doctrine is backed by economic muscle, the Marshall Plan. It's more than just charity. It is a strategic infusion of billions of dollars to rebuild war-torn Western Europe. The logic is simple. Prosperous nations are less susceptible to the allure of communism. It is money and promises to keep Europe on the American track. The first major flashpoint erupts in 1948, in the divided city of Berlin. In response to the Western powers introducing a new currency in their sectors, the Soviets tighten their grip. They blockade all land and water access to West Berlin, hoping to starve the city into submission and force the Allies out. The West's response is audacious and unprecedented. The Berlin airlift begins. Instead of tanks, they send planes, delivering everything from food and fuel to coal and candy. Planes land every few minutes, a constant stream of life from the sky. This monumental effort lasts for nearly a year, a powerful symbol of Western resolve. The Soviets eventually lift the blockade, handing the West its first major victory of the Cold War. The crisis accelerates the creation of a formal military alliance. In 1949, the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, NATO, is born. Its core principle, Article 5, states that an attack on one member is an attack on all. The Western Bloc is now a military bloc, but the strategic calculus changes dramatically that very same year. The USSR tests its own atomic bomb, ending the American nuclear monopoly far sooner than expected. Now, both sides possess the power to annihilate the other. Now both sides glow with a terrifying radioactive light. The arms race has begun. The Cold War turns hot for the first time on a peninsula in East Asia. From 1950 to 1953, Korea ignites. The Communist North, backed by the Soviet Union, invades the South. The United Nations, led by the United States, intervenes to push them back. It becomes a brutal proxy war, a fight of North against South, capitalism against communism. After initial successes for the UN forces, China enters the war, sending hundreds of thousands of troops to support the North. The conflict descends into a bloody stalemate that eventually stalls near the original border, the 38th parallel. An armistice is signed, but no peace treaty. The division remains frozen in time. In 1953, a seismic event occurs in Moscow. Joseph Stalin dies. For a quarter of a century, he was the absolute iron-fisted ruler of the Soviet Union. His death ushers in a period of collective leadership and uncertainty. Power changes hands, but the fundamental ideological conflict, the Cold, remains. In 1955, the Soviet Union formalizes its own military alliance to counter NATO. The Warsaw Pact is formed, binding the nations of Eastern Europe into a unified military command under Moscow. It is an eastern mirror to NATO, cementing the continent's division into two armed camps. A year later, in 1956, cracks appear in the Eastern Bloc. Inspired by a brief hope for liberalization after Stalin's death, Hungary rises up. Students and workers take to the streets, demanding free elections and the withdrawal of Soviet troops. For a few heady days, it seems the revolution might succeed. But the hope is short-lived. Soviet tanks roll into Budapest to crush the uprising. The world watches in horror, but does not intervene, unwilling to risk a direct confrontation with the Soviets. The Hungarian uprising is brutally suppressed. The lesson is given in steel. Moscow will not tolerate dissent within its sphere of influence. In 1957, the competition moves to a new frontier: space. The world is stunned when the Soviet Union launches Sputnik 1, the first artificial satellite. A tiny metal sphere, just 23 inches in diameter, beeps its way above the planet, a clear demonstration of Soviet technological prowess. The space race is on. Tensions on Earth, however, remain high. In 1960, on the eve of a crucial peace summit in Paris, a high-altitude American U-2 spy plane is shot down over the Soviet Union. Moscow reveals the captured pilot, Francis Gary Powers, exposing the secret American surveillance program. The summit collapses in acrimony. Trust falls with the plane. The focal point of the Cold War returns to Berlin. In the early hours of August 13, 1961, East German authorities begin to seal the border between East and West Berlin, first with barbed wire, then with a formidable concrete barrier. The Berlin Wall cuts a city in two, a brutal physical manifestation of the Iron Curtain, concrete proof of division. The world then holds its breath in October 1962. American spy planes discover Soviet nuclear missile sites under construction in Cuba, just 90 miles from the coast of Florida. For 13 days, the world stands on the edge of the abyss. The Cuban Missile Crisis is the closest the superpowers have ever come to nuclear war. Through a tense naval quarantine and back-channel negotiations, a deal is struck. The Soviets will remove the missiles from Cuba in exchange for a public U.S. pledge not to invade the island and a secret agreement to remove American missiles from Turkey. The missiles are removed, fingers come off the triggers, and the world exhales, profoundly shaken. From the mid-60s into the 1970s, the Cold War's ideological battleground shifts again, this time to the jungles of Southeast Asia. Vietnam burns. What began as a civil war between the Communist North and the US-backed South escalates into a full-scale American military intervention.